Welcome, everyone. As per usual, my name is Jeff Yenzer, board secretary over here at StarSpace46, from where I'm coming and actually streaming from today. This is my office in StarSpace46. I'm branded, on brand, and ready to go. Again, really what this series is it's just meant to highlight local businesses. And this week, we actually have a special one that's near and dear to my heart and drinking parts. Buddy, this gentleman and his business are actually our creativity sponsor here at StarSpace46, our liquid creativity sponsor. So I get to talk with a dear friend of mine and chit-chat about the past, present, and future of Angry Scotsman Brewery. So I would love to bring Ross Harper on, our least angry Scotsman.
How you doing, Jeff?
Doing well. How about you, man?
It's Tuesday. I think this week is on brand for 2020, but we're just fighting through.
I completely understand. We're sitting here, and as I look out my window, we're getting completely new pavement around Starspace right now. So we've got this low rumble that is not actually my tummy at lunchtime, but rather some equipment outside. So it is most certainly a Tuesday when I'm wondering. Ross, let me just kind of ask you a few questions for people that don't know who you are or know where you come from. You have one of the most impressive and diverse backgrounds to get where you are as an entrepreneur today. Kind of tell us what brought you to the year of our Lord 2020.
You're gonna make me blush here, Jeff. Angry Scotsman, name suggests. I was born in Scotland, Edinburgh. I actually grew up, bounced around Scotland, fairly formative years, parked me back in Glasgow, which is West Coast. So two major cities, Edinburgh on the East Coast, Glasgow on the West Coast. So formative years, high school equivalent, undergraduate degrees in Scotland. Never planned to be running a brewery in Oklahoma some 20 years later, but 2001, I moved to Miami, Florida, actually, to go to grad school and spent 4 years down there. Did a PhD in chemistry at that point. And again, plan was to go back to the UK. I had a job lined up with the MOD, that's the Ministry of Defence, because in the UK we like to do ministries, not departments, because it sounds better. But again, realizing I'd kind of got used to life this side of the Atlantic, cost of living, a little bit more laissez-faire, and not to mention civil servant salaries in London, not great. And a small defense contractor tech company in Stillwater, of all places. I'd crossed paths with them a few times. They ended up making me an offer I couldn't refuse, and I traded South Beach for Stillwater in 2005, and I'm in Oklahoma. Yeah. So, no, the change of pace when I first moved here was great.
Yeah.
Miami, I was in Miami in my mid-20s. It was a blast. It's the best time, my mid-20s, early 2000s, great time to live there. Could I go back and live there now? Absolutely none. And so, still love to go visit, still got lots of friends down there. But when I first moved to Stillwater, I was like, okay, country, here we go. And about 3 months in, it was kind of like, what the hell have I done? But, there's that saying that, the red dirt gets in your veins around here. And I got to say, you get to know the people and just life slowed down. And it was probably the best thing that ever happened to me. And here I am some 15 years later, still in Oklahoma. And now I've got roots that aren't going anywhere because these tanks are not easy to pack up.
Very heavy, very heavy.
Yeah.
Before the show, we talked a little bit about those very tanks and how professionally, if this were a few years back, those tanks would be filled with something completely different. So, how did you get from that professionally to I want to open up a brewery in Oklahoma?
Yeah.
Where was that?
I started out with in the defense industry. I actually started out in forensics. So my degrees are forensic science and forensic chemistry, focusing on explosives and drugs analysis and things like that. I did that long before CSI made it cool. So that's aging myself right there. But I rapidly moved into more of the explosives and then chemical weapons area, based on the science background of it. So yeah, if you saw me around big stainless steel tanks, a few years ago, there might have been something little less appealing than beer inside those tanks, but I'd also been wearing a lot more safety gear at that point.
Right.
But as much as I love that job, and it's taken me to every corner of the planet, I've met some really cool people who are willing to make a commitment and a sacrifice and put their lives on the line that, some of us can't necessarily do. And so full credit to them. I've worked with a lot of really, really brave individuals. But when I was in Oklahoma and not traveling, I needed a hobby, because when you're in grad school, you're working 7 days a week, pretty much. And in the early days, when you take on a day job, you're like, what's this thing called a weekend? And I also realized, remember, we're going back 15 years ago, the Oklahoma liquor laws and the quality of the beer that was available in Oklahoma back then, not great. So needed a hobby, needed access to better beer, and I kind of thought, well, I guess I'm just going to have to try and make it myself. Bought a starter kit from the brew shop in Oklahoma City, which is still here. I mean, it's moved, but it's still on Penn Avenue, just a few streets down. And back then, the owner was like, if you can Betty Crocker a cake out of a box, you can make beer out of a box if you really want to. Yeah. So I did kits to get a feel for it, and then you kind of progress and you start using raw ingredients as opposed to prepared kits and grain, and it just, like fishing, you can never have enough equipment, and you're normally drinking a beer when you do it. And you don't fish to save money buying fish. You don't brew to save money on beer. But it became a hobby. And the Oklahoma beer industry 10, 15 years ago, there weren't many breweries. There wasn't a lot of local. And so when there were events, the home brewers kind of had to jump inside next to the pros to boost the numbers. And so you realize how tightly knit that community got, and you start making connections, you start to get a feel for it. And not only is Oklahoma and the people really starting to vibe, you're thinking, this is kind of a fun industry. And here we are now.
So what was the point when you realized that this was not just, hey, I'm going to brew in my garage, but like it's time to kick it up a notch and start using those additional things? Like what was the aha moment for you?
Well, I mean, I can joke that my wife basically told me to get all the equipment out of the garage at some point, but
that tracks.
She did. She was incredible. Stephanie was incredibly tolerant of a 2-car garage that became a 2-car garage with some brewing equipment in the corner, that became a 1-car garage with some brewing equipment, that became a 2-car brewery that you could sometimes squeeze 1 car in if you moved all the equipment to the sides.
Right.
But no, it was a case of I got tired. I mean, I was giving away as much beer as I did, and I thought, well, maybe I should get paid to do this. I don't know. I saw it as an opportunity to start something. I thought I could bring something a little bit different to the table. Breweries in Oklahoma, again, we're talking 2010, 2012 when I started percolating this idea. There was no tap room back then. It was just production. You still had the 2-strength beer laws in there, so you had high point beer, anything over 3.2 by weight, 4% by volume. So you had all your low point that you could sell yourself, and all the high point had to go to bars and restaurants. So tap rooms weren't really a thing unless you had low point, and not many people wanted to drink low point. But I could see there was the possibility of laws changing, but I also thought a lot of beers in the UK and in Europe, a 4% beer is kind of a standard beer. This idea in America where if an IPA is less than 6%, it's weak sauce, or that your session beers are 6%. I mean, I figured I could make some pretty darn good 4% beers if I needed to. Bricktown Brewery was doing it for years. So I'd already started to get the wheels in motion, thinking, okay, I can maybe do this taproom approach even under the old laws. But when I saw the new laws were were poised and they were going to change, and that got rid of the two-strength system. It permitted self-distribution. It was going to permit tap rooms. That was the model for me. And I looked at it as the US has a bar scene and the UK has a pub scene. You know, pubs in the UK, they're the neighborhood living rooms. It's where you meet your mates. It's just a very kind of different vibe than bars, even sports bars in America, which are the closest thing to a pub, probably. And I wanted to try and see if I could bring some of that pub atmosphere without the drunk old guy in the corner and, you know, no windows, so you had no idea what time of day it was. But so I wanted to try and do that, and I realized that this would actually, you know, from an investment perspective, you know, one of the best ways to, you know, if you're willing to take the risk, one of the best ways to see a return is really to start a business. And so I figured let's do that. This is kind of my retirement plan right here.
I like it. I like it. On the subject of business and really, you know, to address like COVID elephants in the room, like what have you had to really change or adapt to over the last few months? Because I mean, like you all completely shifted and, you know, just re-strategized, and it was amazing to watch.
It's this has been a absolute roller coaster of a year. People talk about the first year of a business is just trying to find your footing and stabilize. The second year is kind of that growth year, where you're hoping by the end of the second year you're making money or at least paying the bills. And then, you know, kind of that third year, that's when you want to get off the runway. That's when you want to take off. And so 2020 was supposed to be our year for that, you know. Everybody talks about seeing a big dip in the winter in the service industry, and we didn't really see that. And I'll be straight up, come February of this year, pre-COVID, was our best month ever. And you never say that for a bar, February being your best, you know. So we were primed. We were ready to take off. The bank was happy. I was happy. I had all these growth plans, you know, in my mind. And then March hit. And middle of March, we closed the doors. And we were closed for 9 weeks right off the bat. Now, in those 9 weeks, we were able to sell to go. We were one of the first breweries, I think, in town to set up a website where you could place orders and do curbside pickup. So we basically Amazoned it so you could come do, you know, that mindset. We created our website. We created the ability to pre-order any of our cans that we offered. But then also, because we were so small batch focused, and you know, we've got 24 beers here normally, so there's a whole bunch of stuff that we don't put in cans. We started getting in more growlers. We started getting in other bottles that we could fill. And so we allowed people to basically order on demand anything that we did from small batch and have it ready for them to come pick it up. And Ashley and Kelsey, my social media manager, my taproom manager, they basically manned the service window. If you've been here to Angry Scotsman, you'll know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, why haven't you come here yet?
Really?
We've got like a 6,000 square foot patio here. One of the first things we did when we built this place was we call it the drive-through window, but we put a service window in so you can access the bar from the patio without ever having to come inside the building. We didn't do it with COVID in mind, but let me tell you, that was a game changer for us. That way we could keep everybody out the building. People could feel safe coming to us. We had the plexiglass down, slide you your beers. And for March and April, I was just amazed how the numbers were just from to-go beers. When we were permitted to open in May under phase, we were actually permitted to open under phase 1 because bars were phase 2, restaurants were phase 1, and for whatever reason, we're classified as a restaurant rather than a bar, probably because we make it on site, I guess. We didn't open under phase 1. We stayed closed for a few more weeks. And when we did open, we opened taproom only, patio only. So we basically created a rat run from the front door to the restrooms. We said you can come in the building to the restrooms, but that's it. So kept the staff well distanced from anyone inside the building. And again, the weather, the patio played ball, and so far for end of May and into June, we were just patio only and used that space and used that outdoor. When it got too hot, we needed air conditioning. We had to open the inside, but we're operating at less than 50% capacity. We've got plexiglass shields up in front of the bar, and everybody wears masks. Every surface gets wiped down after every customer, every 20 minutes on the door handles. 2020 has pivoted from the year of growth to the year of keeping my employees safe, but also keeping my employees employed, and making sure that as rough as this year is for so many people psychologically as well as physically and monetarily, the more we can do to take care of the Scotsman family here, the better.
Right. It's all about taking care of each other.
Yeah.
There's so much of that. And as somebody who was coming in during each phase of your reopening, Angry Scotsman is close to StarSpace, and both in proximity and just in friendship. Yeah, it was especially in my role, as an HR consultant, it was amazing to see you all just be able to pivot and make the decisions and the hard calls that other people would have tried to find ways to cut corners or tried to find ways to, look at the letter of the law and figure out how they could find a way around it. And it was inspiring to see you all actually just, back down, really take your staff as the number one priority and still see growth and happiness and business throughout it. It was very good. I appreciate you all doing business right.
Yeah, we definitely try to take care of each other here. When everybody temperature checks every day when they come in, we all distance and wear masks. I think it's safe to say that most of the people who work here, we're all on the cautious side of it anyway. So even outside of working here, we're masked up everywhere we go. We're not going to bars and restaurants. So we're all kind of taking care of each other that way as well. One of the things two of the things that really helped us not have to throw the doors wide open and just try to make as much revenue as possible really was some of the government assistance that came out earlier this year.
Sure.
We were fortunate enough, we scored a PPP loan. So that took care of rent and payroll for a couple months. Hopefully that's forgiven. We were also fortunate enough to score an EIDL loan, which is the Economic Injury Disaster Loan through the SBA. And that's a long-term, low fixed interest rate loan that is given to qualifying businesses. And that allows us to spend that money to either, you can't just use it to pay off debts,
right.
But you can use it to cover certain operating costs, and you can use it to restructure the business to respond to that economic injury, the economic injury being COVID.
Correct.
And COVID has closed bars, it has closed restaurants, or reduced them to the point where draft business as a brewery is down. Think about it. Everybody who goes to the restaurants and the bars, when they order drinks, most of the time you're not ordering cans from behind the bar, you're ordering what's on tap.
Yeah.
And so what you see is the business side of it, how many kegs we sell has taken a hit. Conversely, everybody's drinking at home now, so liquor store business is great because everyone wants to go buy cans and take them home and sit in the patio, which is the responsible thing to do. And so we have more we have more demand for cans, less demand for kegs. So what we decided to do was purchase the big tank right behind me and its brother over there. So these two large tanks that we got used, but we got them from another brewery in town, actually allowed us to double our production capacity so we could make more beer. Who would think you expand in a pandemic? But we increased our production capacity so we could make more beer without rushing it. And then we've also, we're in the process of acquiring a canning line. Go figure, there's a long lead on those items right now. But getting that canning line in will allow us, again, to increase the percentage of our product that goes into cans versus kegs, remove that reliance on draft accounts, and allow us to move more beer in cans to liquor stores and direct sales behind the bar. A lot of people don't realize still you can buy beer direct from the breweries. So if you want a cold can, you're not going to get it much fresher than from the place that makes it.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, small sales pitch right there.
Hey, I've had growlers and crowlers and squealers, I like to call them, in my refrigerator pretty much throughout this whole thing.
Yeah, those little 16s are fun, aren't they?
Oh, they're great, especially when you go with like something like this triple. Like you don't need to get a large thing of this; it's just going to mess you up. So just enough.
Yeah, we have two rules around here. We don't serve pints of the really strong beers like Fortitude, and we really don't serve pints of Fortitude to my father-in-law.
That's fair. I mean, we only have it canned here at StarSpace versus actually putting it on a keg because I'm a buzzkill, and I told them that they couldn't.
I think you decided that when I offered you a keg, you're like, no, we'll take cans. We'll put something more reasonable on draft.
Hey, I'm just looking out for people. You and I see liability when we talk. So tell me what's next, just in the next little bit. You guys are now able to come out of things, and you all have really just weathered the storm and scaled purposefully. So what comes next for you all?
Well, I think from a facility perspective, as we move into the cooler months over winter, you're going to see less patio use. That does mean whilst we still operate under a restricted capacity indoors, we're going to have to lean up a little bit. But I think that also means I wouldn't be surprised if we start to see some structures on the patio that we're going to give shelter or warmth. So we can try to use that patio space as deep into the season as we can. On the subject of cans, once we get that can line in, I think that's going to be the next kind of expansion for us. When we use a mobile service, you're kind of limited to 2 or 3 runs at a time. So we've focused canning at this point up to our main beers, our core beers, the occasional seasonal. Once we get the canning line in and we have a lot more flexibility as to when we can and what we can and how many we can, you're going to see a lot more smaller releases and small batch stuff coming out, that's going to be a lot of fun because then we can get a little more creative.
Awesome. That's exciting. Let me just wrap this up with one final question. And it's one that I want to pose to you because you've been able to scale the way that you have and really built your business a step at a time. What would you give advice toward someone that's wanting to follow in your footsteps, like in those first 3 years, something that you had to learn the hard way, but you could put forth to an entrepreneur that wants to maybe see your level of success?
I think from a budgeting perspective, always plan to have more money than you think. I mean, that's true for most businesses.
Yeah.
Running gag in brewing industry is to make a small fortune. In the beer industry, you start with a large fortune. But take whatever your budget is, double it. Mm-hmm. Take the construction timeline, double it, and then go back to your budget and double it again. Time and money. This is an industry where there's so much paperwork. It's so heavily regulated. And so many of the applications are done in series. They're not done parallel. So you can't apply for permit B until you've got permit A in place. And then you can't apply for this part until you've got the equipment in place. But the equipment's got a 6 month lead time. But you can't put the equipment in until you've got your facility ready for the equipment. What you end up having is an industry where you might be 18 months out before you're actually legally allowed to make any revenue from the beer itself. So just be prepared for the long haul. Don't lose heart, but be prepared. So that, make sure you've got the financial backing to get you there. Yeah. And then, simply from a time perspective, brewing is a process. It takes the same number of weeks to ferment a small tank as it does to ferment a big tank. It takes the same number of hours in the day to turn grain into a fermentable product. And so don't sell yourself short. There's a really great business model built around small batch, 1 barrel, 3 barrel. That's 30 to 100 gallons at a time if you're just in a small restaurant taproom. And that was a great business model for beer a year and a half ago. Now with reduced taproom, you're looking at production. So don't sell yourself short. I'm not saying run out and buy a massive production facility. But look at things scalable wise. You can usually buy tanks that are double size. So if you start with a 5, you can do 10s down the line. If you start with 1, you can do 2s down the line. So that where you start determines your growth curve.
Awesome. Well, Ross, as per normal, it's a pleasure. I love just sitting down and talking with you over a beer, which at least that's what I'm drinking. So this is like the safe version of, a COVID hangout.
I'm on a different kind of brew right now still, but I'll play catch up down the line.
Yours will wake you up. So your afternoon's going to be a lot more hipper than mine will. So.
Yeah, I've got a long to-do list still to do. So.
Well, all right. For anybody that doesn't know, just kind of pop your address, your location, and then I will bid you adieu, my friend.
Location-wise, we are based Reno and Lee are our cross streets. We're kind of wedged between Reno and the Boulevard, about 4 blocks west of Chesapeake Arena. About halfway from the Chesapeake to StarSpace. So.
Walking distance from Scissortail Park.
Absolutely, yeah. Part of the West downtown beer scene. I think we've now got more breweries in West downtown than Automobile Alley has. So, nana boo boo.
Exactly. That's just winning there. Well, Ross, always a pleasure. I'm going to come down, probably grab some beers from you and enjoy the patio this weekend. But I will see you soon, my friend.
Sounds good. Appreciate it, Jeff.
Take care. And thank you all for joining us for yet another StarSpace Chats. Please share this with your friends, like this if you're able to, and check out our social media. Our landing page is starspace46.com. That's going to allow you to really integrate yourself into this community. You can go to merch46.com if you're noticing a theme to be able to get a track jacket like this one. I always point over here. Shameless plugs aside, we also have free community co-working Wednesdays here at StarSpace46 at 1141 West Sheridan. So just right off the boulevard as well. All you need to do to be able to hang out with us is just RSVP on Meetup using social media channels. And by all means, we would love to have you. That just allows us to kind of prepare for social distancing and things of that nature. But as always, it's always my pleasure to host these sorts of chats with people around our community and Oklahoma City entrepreneurs. I look forward to the next one. And until then, everybody stay safe. Take care of each other. Take care.